When Bad Bunny dropped his album this year, nobody predicted he'd absolutely demolish every single artist on the planet to reclaim his throne as Spotify's most streamed artist of 2025. But what happened behind the numbers tells a much darker story about the music industry's biggest power shift. And Taylor Swift's reaction to losing her crown is something you need to hear. Before we dive into the chaos, you need to understand what makes this year's Spotify Wrapped completely different from anything we've seen before. Because Spotify just changed the game forever with features that have artists and fans completely losing their minds right now. Bad Bunny secured the #1 position on Spotify's global rankings for the 4th time, accumulating nearly 20 billion streams throughout the year. The Puerto Rican superstar didn't just win, he absolutely crushed the competition in a way that has industry insiders questioning whether anyone can ever catch up to his dominance again. His album topped the global charts while simultaneously breaking streaming records that seemed impossible just months ago. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Taylor Swift claimed 2nd place globally, but managed to secure the top artist position in the United States, creating this bizarre split that has fans on both sides going absolutely ballistic on social media. The Weeknd grabbed 3rd place, Drake landed at number 4, and Billie Eilish rounded out the top 5, but none of them come close to the streaming monster that Bad Bunny has become. The real shock comes when you look at what people actually listened to this year. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars' collaboration topped the global songs chart with over 1.7 billion streams, proving that when two megastars collide, the results can be absolutely explosive. This track became the soundtrack to millions of lives, dominating playlists from January straight through to December without losing momentum. But wait until you see what grabbed the #2 spot, because it's a song that most people thought had already peaked. Billie Eilish's track climbed from 3rd place in the previous year to 2nd position, showing that sometimes songs need time to really connect with audiences on a deeper level. Rosé and Bruno Mars seized the 3rd spot with their viral collaboration, and suddenly everyone's questioning whether Bruno Mars is secretly the most powerful artist in music right now, because this man appears twice in the top 3 global songs.
Now here's where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. A Netflix film's soundtrack captured the 2nd position on the global albums chart. And this isn't just any soundtrack, it's a phenomenon that nobody saw coming. The influence of streaming platforms on music consumption has reached a point where a movie soundtrack can compete directly with albums from the biggest artists on the planet. Think about that for a second. A film released on Netflix generated enough streams to beat out albums from Drake, The Weeknd, and almost every other major artist releasing music this year. Billie Eilish's album maintained its position in the top 5 for a 2nd consecutive year, while Sabrina Carpenter's record also returned to the top tier, proving that staying power matters more than initial hype in today's streaming landscape. But the American market tells a completely different story that's causing massive controversy right now. Kendrick Lamar's collaboration topped the United States songs chart, showing that hip-hop still dominates American listening habits despite the global dominance of pop and Latin music. Morgan Wallen's album secured the top position on the U.S. albums chart, and this is where things get really interesting, because country music's influence is way bigger than mainstream media wants to admit. The genre that coastal elites constantly dismiss as irrelevant just produced the most streamed album in America, and the silence from critics has been deafening. Wallen appeared on the top albums list multiple times, cementing his status as one of the most powerful forces in American music, despite facing massive controversy throughout his career.
The podcast world saw its own dramatic shakeup this year. Joe Rogan maintained the top podcast position for the 6th consecutive year, and if you thought his dominance was slowing down, the numbers prove you completely wrong. The Joe Rogan Experience isn't just winning, it's operating in a completely different universe from every other podcast on the platform. Nearly half of the top 50 podcasts now feature video content, marking a fundamental shift in how people consume audio content. Spotify's head of content partnerships made it clear that podcasting has transcended its niche origins to become a mainstream media format, and video integration played a massive role in that transformation.
Theo Von grabbed second place, the Mel Robbins podcast secured third, and Alex Cooper's show landed at number 4, proving that personality-driven content absolutely dominates in the podcast space. Here's where Spotify completely changed the game, and nobody's talking about it enough. The platform introduced its first multiplayer feature, allowing up to 9 friends to compare their listening statistics, transforming Wrapped from a solo experience into a social phenomenon that's designed to keep you engaged for hours. This isn't just a fun feature, it's a calculated move to increase user engagement and make Wrapped even more viral than it already was. But the real story is what Spotify removed from this year's experience. After receiving mixed feedback about their previous AI-focused approach, the company stepped back from prominently featuring artificial intelligence, though they're still using language models behind the scenes to generate storytelling elements. The company's senior marketing director admitted they got substantial criticism about their AI implementation, which in corporate speak means people absolutely hated it and made their feelings very clear. The competition is heating up in ways that should terrify Spotify's executives. Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Deezer, and SoundCloud all launched their own annual review features, creating a landscape where every streaming platform is fighting for the same viral moment that made Wrapped so successful. Apple Music calls theirs Replay, YouTube Music uses Recap, Amazon went with Delivered, and SoundCloud created Your SoundCloud. Each platform is desperately trying to capture the cultural moment that Spotify owns, but none of them have managed to generate the same level of social media frenzy that Wrapped creates every single year. The pressure on Spotify to deliver a perfect experience has never been higher, because one misstep could send millions of users exploring what competitors have to offer.
The audiobook segment revealed something fascinating about changing consumer habits. Fantasy romance dominated the audiobook charts, with authors like Rebecca Yarros and Sarah J. Maas leading the rankings, showing that listeners are gravitating toward escapist content in unprecedented numbers. The romantasy genre, as fans call it, has exploded in Spotify in ways that traditional publishers never predicted. But here's what's really wild about these numbers. Listeners are building a new collection of modern classics that they return to repeatedly, rather than constantly seeking new releases, fundamentally changing how the publishing industry needs to think about long-term value versus quick hits. Books that came out years ago are still dominating the charts because people want to revisit stories they love rather than constantly jumping to whatever's newest. The geographic split between global and American listening habits reveals massive cultural divides that marketers are scrambling to understand. Latin music and pop collaborations dominate worldwide, but country and hip-hop still rule America. Bad Bunny can rack up 20 billion streams globally, while Morgan Wallen takes the U.S. album top spot. And both realities exist simultaneously in ways that make targeting audiences incredibly complex. Artists who want to truly dominate need to figure out how to appeal across these cultural boundaries or accept that they'll be massive in some markets while remaining relatively unknown in others. The days of one-size-fits-all viewable superstars might be ending as regional preferences become more pronounced and fragmented. Spotify's introduction of new personalization features like listening age comparisons and archived memorable streaming days shows they're doubling down on data to keep users obsessed with their platform. These features turn your listening habits into a competition with your age group and transform random listening days into collectible memories you'll want to share. The psychological manipulation is actually brilliant because it makes you feel like your music taste matters in ways beyond just personal enjoyment. You're not just listening to music anymore. You're building a profile that gets compared, analyzed, and turned into shareable content that feeds Spotify's viral marketing machine.
The message from this year's Wrapped is crystal clear. Collaborations between megastars generate streams that solo releases struggle to match. Film and TV soundtracks can compete directly with traditional album releases. And regional preferences matter more than ever in determining who wins the streaming wars.
Bad Bunny proved that consistent output, combined with cultural authenticity, can beat even Taylor Swift's massive fan base when you're measuring global impact. The Weeknd, Drake, and Billie Eilish all remain powerful forces, but none of them could touch Bad Bunny's numbers when everything was calculated. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars showed that a perfectly crafted duet can become the song of the year, while Morgan Wallen demonstrated that country music's influence in America far exceeds what industry gatekeepers want to acknowledge. Looking at where streaming culture is headed, we're entering an era where your listening data becomes social currency, and platforms compete viciously for your attention by turning year-end statistics into entertainment. The integration of video into podcasts isn't slowing down, it's accelerating as creators realize that multi-format content captures audiences more effectively than audio alone. Joe Rogan's continued dominance proves that long-form conversational content still destroys short attention span media when the host has genuine charisma and draws compelling guests. The romantasy boom in audiobooks suggests that people are craving immersive escapist content more than ever, possibly as a response to how chaotic and overwhelming real life has become in recent years. What makes this year's results so compelling is how they expose the myths about what actually drives streaming success. It's not just about having the biggest fan base, or the most radio play, or the best marketing budget. Bad Bunny doesn't dominate American radio, yet he's the most streamed artist globally. Morgan Wallen faced massive industry backlash, yet his album topped US charts. Lady Gaga hadn't released a solo hit in years before collaborating with Bruno Mars, and suddenly they have the biggest song on the planet. The old rules about how to build a music career are crumbling as streaming data reveals what people actually listen to when nobody's watching. The disconnect between critical acclaim, industry awards, and actual listening habits has never been more obvious than it is right now when you look at these wrapped numbers and compare them to who gets celebrated at award shows and featured in mainstream music publications.